All right, what is up, Rundown listeners? I am your host, Ben Peterson, alongside co host Justin Tavener. Justin, my man, it's good to see that you didn't blow away. And just real quick on that note, before we get into it, there is a small possibility that either myself or Justin will have to hop off because in the last hour, Justin's had a tornado warning and I've had two. So, just in the event one of us has to hop off, take shelter, to make sure we don't die. The other one will continue. We'll just probably have a short little break while we get that squared away. So on that note, how you doing today, man?
Doing good. Just trying to stay dry. It's been a wild day up here in Cincy, but doing good. Ready to get into it today.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's just get right into it, starting with something that honestly made me really sad, but also kind of shocked me that hadn't happened already. NBA legend Rajon Rondo has retired from basketball as a four-time All-Star and a two-time NBA champion. Kind of like you, I grew up watching Rondo. I watched him at UK. I watched him on that legendary Celtics run in 2008, kind of lead that team, just, keeping them together. Watched him be the glue guy on a lot of pretty bad teams, to be quite honest. And then, of course, that championship run with the Lakers in the bubble in 2020. Like I said, honestly kind of thought he had already retired just because he hadn't been on a team. But it's still sad to see, legends that we've known and love stepping away from the game. So, Justin, I want to hear your thoughts, but also have a question for you. Is Rondo the best true point guard ever?
I think if we're talking true point guard, I would probably still have to give it to Magic Johnson. I just think he was probably the best, like just all around point guard. But he's definitely got to be up there with one of the best passers of all time. His court vision is just unmatched.
Nuts.
I mean, he was dropping 20 assists like it was a normal like everyday Tuesday like that. Like it looked like he was playing rec ball out there the way he was just dishing assists. He was so fun to watch. He was like you said, watching him on that Celtics team, that 2008 championship run. It was just incredible. Some of the stuff that he did and some of his passes are just like, I mean, out of this world. Like you can't even describe like how he was able to get some of the passes there. So it is definitely sad to see him retire, but I think he had a great career. It'll be interesting to see if he gets into the Hall of Fame. I would probably venture to guess he doesn't though.
You don't think he's getting into the Hall of Fame?
Uh, Maybe because it's the Basketball Hall of Fame and they kind of let everybody in
I
there.
was gonna say he has two championships and is a four-time All-Star.
Yeah, just depends on how
So
much they weigh those championships because he doesn't have any Finals MVPs or MVPs or. I mean, he led the league in assists a bunch, but
yeah. Well, and it is kind of hard. Rondo's one of those players that is like the perfect glue guy, the perfect role player, but he's never obviously going to be the key like cornerstone piece of it. Like you're not watching a team come in like, "Oh crap, look out for Rondo."
yeah,
It was always who he was feeding it to that was the problem. But I definitely think that there's a lot to be said for his impact on the game and, like you said, his court vision and just the just crazy passes that he was dishing out to like Paul Pierce and Kevin Garnett and then Ray Allen and then of course like LeBron, AD, and all of the guys he played with in between. So shout out to Rondo for a great NBA career and the game's gonna miss him. Another breaking news topic that I put in here just kind of as a joke, but it is pretty funny to me, is that Skip Bayless is undisputed is averaging less than 50,000 viewers right now. You and I both talked about how we thought Shannon Sharp was kind of the driving force behind that show, was kind of the reason that show was good, and yeah, it's showing with his viewership because 50K viewers is rough.
yeah,
when you
it's
consider
not
that
great.
when you consider that FS1 is like the second largest sports network that like does like sports full time.
Yeah,
That's pretty bad. Um, that's all I really had on that. Unless you just had any thoughts or wanted to get in a quick laugh.
no, I'm good.
Cool. So another actual breaking news story now is that Kansas City Chiefs wide receiver Rashee Rice has been involved in a multiple car collision on the highway after racing with another driver. I did see that his like legal team put out a statement today talking about how he's cooperating fully with law enforcement, but this is just not good. I mean, to put it lightly, this is not good at all. Obviously it's not quite the same as like the Henry Ruggs situation because Rasheed Rice didn't obviously kill anybody, but um, it's just what is it with these wide receivers, man? Like, just be fast on the field.
Right.
um, you know, so I want to get your thoughts too, and then I've got a question for you. So
Yeah, it's just not a good look. It just yeah, that's really all I have. It's just not a good look for him, not a
yeah,
good look for the Chiefs.
absolutely.
Um, and you just kind of glad that everybody's okay with like everyone's safe. No, no like um, big tragedies happened because of this. So just glad to hear that at least.
For sure. So yeah, then I guess I'll just get to my question then. What do you think this means for Kansas City if they potentially lose Rice, who I mean was kind of their number one receiving target, not named Travis Kelsey?
I would say it's huge. I mean, like you said, he was the number one receiver. And outside of him, who do they have now? Marquise Brown, which,
I mean, he's
he's
good, but he's also like
okay.
100
Yeah.
years old now. So
Yeah. And it's like he's probably a little past his prime. And it just already, if they were to lose him for a couple games or whatever, it already kind of depletes a very
lackluster
not
for
so talented
yeah,
wide receiver core.
for
So
sure.
this would be a huge loss for them if they were to lose him for a couple games or whatever.
Yeah, and also, I mean, you look at it. I mean, you'd like to think. I'm sure Kansas City is probably going to target some wide receivers in the draft anyway. But you got to think if they're going to lose Rasheed Rice for any amount of time, this could potentially even like alter their draft plans and like the way that they're going to manage their team moving forward. So it's like this could have even just a bigger impact on the team than just losing their number one receiver for a couple games. Like it's wow.
Yeah, because then you start going down to like, well, do we want to keep him on the team given his decision making off the field? Is that a good, is that good to bring in bad publicity? And him making the decisions that he's making off the field. Obviously, this is the first like big real thing that he's done off the field, but you never know if he's doing this. Could it lead to bigger things down the road that he does off the field?
Right. It's one of those things where it's like you said, their decision making. It really makes me question, like, sure, this time nobody got hurt and it was just racing a car on the highway, but what could it potentially turn into as well? It's like you said, it definitely influences those future decisions as well. So, not a good look at all. I mean, as if Kansas City really needed another thing to not go their way when it comes to their wide receivers. Um, onto our next story. WKU head basketball coach Steve Lutz has accepted a job with the Oklahoma State University after leading the Hilltoppers to their first NCAA tournament appearance in over a decade. Shout out to the Hilltoppers on a great season. I think this is a great move for Oklahoma State. I almost said Oklahoma City. As they're getting a proven coach and someone to take over the reins and hopefully build on that program. As far as WKU, it's hard to look at this and not think one step forward, two steps back. Like they build, and this is the problem with mid major is not the right name for it, but this is the problem with like your smaller tier schools. Is it's you get these schools that they'll have a great season and then their coach gets a job at a big school, and then it feels like they can never get over the hump and become like a staple program because they are constantly experiencing this turnover of coaches, or it's hard for them to get talent because of that. I think if WKU is gonna build on this success, they need to hire a coach that also has some experience but could maybe use a bigger name. I was thinking maybe like Oakland's head coach, or just somebody like that who was a part of one of these teams that made the tournament. Nobody knew who they were previously, and like that coach could use that big name like not that WKU is a big name school, but if you asked me Western Kentucky University or Oakland, which one have people heard of? you're probably going to have heard of WKU, considering they have been nationally ranked in football and basketball within the last 20 years. um, I don't know. Did you have any thoughts on this story? I kind of put this one in here more for me, but
Yeah, just kind of echoing like your sentiments on how, it's hard for these smaller programs to kind of get over that hump and become a staple program because they're experiencing that turnover. We saw it last year with St. Peter's, or 2 years ago, where they went on that run, and it was like all of their guys left. Edert left, their head coach left, and while they still had some success this past season, they did make it to the tournament. It just didn't feel the same because all of the guys that had that success with them left. So I definitely echo that.
mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so sorry, I kind of lost my train of thought there for just a second. Moving on to our next story, Kentucky and John Calipari have announced that, per my hot take last week, clearly they listened to the pod and thought that I was correct there. So John Calipari will be returning to the university as head coach of the basketball program next season. I've given all my thoughts on Cal. I don't really have anything new to say. Other than I'm not 100% sure how I feel about this yet. But Justin, do you think that UK and Coach Cal can turn this trend of losing early around, or are Kentucky fans doomed to more of the same misery?
Um, I mean, we touched on this last week. They just don't have a great track record. Haven't been to a Final Four in almost a decade. I mean, they've lost 2 of the last 3 years to a 14 and 15 seed. It's just not a great look. Honestly, it just kind of feels like the Bengals with Marvin Lewis, where Marvin Lewis was having success. He made it to the playoffs a bunch of times, didn't do anything. And it just kind of felt like it was time, like he wasn't doing anything wrong necessarily. I thought he was having great success with the pieces that he was given, but he wasn't doing anything to elevate his personnel. And that's kind of where I feel like Coach Cal is. Like he's having success with the personnel that he has, but he's not doing anything to elevate it. And it just kind of feels like the Coach Cal has run its course, and maybe it's time to get a fresh perspective in that locker room. So until they prove me wrong, I have to imagine that they're just going to continue not making Final Fours.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, I didn't mean to get distracted there, but breaking news as of about an hour ago, media star USC player LeBron James Jr. has entered the transfer portal and will not play at USC next season. So, Bronny is heading elsewhere.
I believe he's not going to the draft.
That would be my guess, yeah. Which, honestly, like, I hope the best for him. I hope the best for him. It's great to see him even playing after the cardiac event he had to start the season and all that jazz. But I think playing somewhere in college for another year was the best decision, I think. But yeah, so that just broke as of like an hour ago, which to me makes me think that LeBron may not be re-signing with the Lakers.
He is a free agent.
He is. So it's funny because I found out about that by seeing a tweet that said Bronny has the chance to do the funniest thing. And it's a picture of LeBron sitting with that, I can't remember who it was that he interviewed with for the decision. But they photoshopped they photoshopped Bronny's head onto LeBron. So, some kind of possible things would be like a LeBron return to Cleveland, where his hometown where he's from. Maybe Bronny were to go to, I don't know, say Ohio State.
I mean, he did get recruited by Ohio State. He chose, like, his two schools were USC and Ohio State this past season, and he chose USC simply because he lives in LA. His dad plays for LA. So, I mean, it's not impossible.
Not impossible. You could also, I know he was rumored to have been recruited at least a little bit by UK. I don't think that would happen, but I'm just thinking of like big programs that are kind of near there. You would have like Ohio State, you'd have UK,
UC or Xavier, but those are
UC.
kind of
Those
smaller.
are smaller. Which I mean, he would be obviously the best player on the team and would get the ball in his hands a lot more. But
Yeah, Indiana.
Indiana would be one. I was thinking maybe like West Virginia would be like decently
I would
close.
say Louisville, but sorry, J Downs.
Georgetown College would be. Could you imagine? Just
Imagine.
seeing go Tigers, baby. Yeah. So anyway, I know we didn't have that one in the rundown, but obviously that just broke an hour ago. So on to our next story. Speaking of, LeBron James has passed Michael Jordan for the most 30-plus point games in NBA history with 642. On the season, LeBron is shooting 41% from three this year, which is better than, I don't know, Steph Curry, a couple other guys. And recently he went 9 for 10 from three in a 47-5 game and a 116-104 win against the Brooklyn Nets. Michael Jordan, meanwhile, had 9 seasons under 30% three-point shooting and 5 seasons under 20% three-point shooting.
To be fair, the
that's what I was about to say.
Introduced while he was playing, so
was it? I thought it was before he was playing. I thought it was like late 70s. But you mean like
it was like his like?
I think you.
I thought it was introduced like his like second year in the pros.
You could be right. I don't really feel like looking it up right now, so for now we'll just settle on that, sure, and then we'll figure it out later. But anyway, that's still rough. This y'all a goat.
Right.
So first of all, how much more can we say about LeBron and how great he is? You know, like I just don't know what more we can say that's not already been said for the last 21 years. However, Justin,
it was introduced in 1979-80,
79,
and his
80.
rookie year was 1984.
Yeah.
So
I was right, and take that, bitch. But also,
whoa.
Yeah, I'll have to censor that. Anyway, so Justin, Nick Wright had a take on LeBron that I want to hear your thoughts on. He said
boy, I haven't heard this, so
yeah,
I'm interested.
He said that LeBron could genuinely end his career without ever being bad. So like most guys have a final year where they're like mid or bad. Like Jordan on the Wizards was obviously shell of himself, and like Kareem was up there, you know, averaging 10 points a game his last year, stuff like that. But LeBron is in year 21 and is still a top 10 player in the NBA. And Nick's argument was that LeBron could genuinely play another 5 years and we might not see a fall off like that. So I kind of wanted to know what your thoughts were on that take and if you think we will ever see LeBron fall off or if you think he would retire before that time came.
I think he would retire. I mean, let's be honest. He's in year 21. If you took the other 5 guys that have played 21 seasons and combined their point scoring,
he's outscored them.
he would outscore all 5 of them combined.
Can we just talk about how like wrong it sounds to say LeBron in year 25? Like, I'm just thinking about Nick's take of like if he were to play 5 more years, we would have LeBron in year 26. What?
I have a feeling that LeBron.
I think 23 would be my guess.
I think next year. I think next year's it.
I would say 23, and it would be because it's symbolic.
Maybe. But it just depends on how much he's willing to put his body through. Because right now, I do agree he is a top 10 player in the NBA currently. But I just don't know how long he's able to sustain that. We also said the same thing about like Tom Brady. Like he was 40, and we're like, okay, yeah, he's got like 1 or 2 more years, and then he played 5 more. Well, so it's kind of the same situation.
So let's be honest too. We've been saying about LeBron for the last freaking 8 years. He can't sustain this for much longer. He's gonna fall off.
There's a tweet from like 2015.
Not like us specifically.
Where guys like, oh, thank God we only have 2 more years with LeBron.
Who's gonna tell him? He's just over here now like. Yeah. So I completely agree. I just think 23 because like that's been LeBron's number like that. I just think LeBron is symbolic enough. I could just see him doing that because at that point he'd play longer than anybody else and would be greater. I mean, I could genuinely see him retiring after 23 years in the league as like a top 15 player. But I definitely think it's going to be year to
Yeah.
year, and it's going to just depend on like his next landing spot if it's not with LA. Um, like the pieces around him and how integral of a piece he has to be. You know, if he can keep playing that point guard role and um like can have like players take over the scoring for him so he doesn't have to keep like he would obviously I still think he's going to average, 25 7 and 7 or something like that, but like if he didn't have to drop 28 to 30 a night like he has to do for the Lakers right now.
Yeah, if he could be like the third option on a team,
I could see him
maybe
going
a team like Cleveland where they have Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell and Evan Mobley and Jared Allen. Like he would be the three there, and or he'd play small forward, the three position, and he would be the second or third option on that team.
Could you imagine LeBron on the Warriors with
I don't want
Steph
to.
and Jonathan Kuminga?
I don't want to.
And you wouldn't have a need for Draymond at that point because LeBron could play point and run the offense like Draymond does. So you could move off of that and pick up another piece like a center potentially.
A solid defender, yeah.
Yeah. Anthony Davis decides to take a team-friendly deal and go to the Warriors with LeBron. Anyway,
shut your mouth.
right? Yeah. Anyway, before we start, giving the Avengers Thanos, let's move on. So we had the most anticipated NCAA rematch, arguably in the last 5 years. Like I can't think of any rematch between teams, men's or women's, more anticipated than this Iowa LSU rematch that we got in the Elite Eight of the women's tournament. And Caitlin Clark decided she was going to become 2020 or 2016 unanimous MVP Steph Curry. As Iowa beats LSU 94-87. That score makes it sound a lot closer than it was. There was no point in like the last, honestly, like the fourth quarter that I thought LSU had a chance to win this game. Caitlin Clark. So let me back up a minute. So Angel Reese fouled out late in the fourth quarter. She had 17 points, 20 rebounds, and 4 assists. She did kind of tweak her ankle earlier in the game. And she said she wasn't going to use this as an excuse, but you could tell like she shot 6 for 8 or something like that before she did that, and then she was like 1 for 12 afterwards. So you could tell if nothing else it threw her off a bit, but also she got into foul trouble and was having to play differently. So then Haley Van Lith was guarding Caitlin Clark, and she clamped her to 41 points, 7 rebounds, and 12 assists with 9 threes.
Honestly, that should be like
that's like
she should be player of the game.
Yeah,
honestly,
that's like Andre Iguodala.
Yeah, he got Finals MVP for clamping LeBron to like 35, 8 and 9 or something.
Oh, my favorite clip from that is Caitlin Clark pulling up on some Steph Curry shot, and then it goes in, and Haley Van Lith just looks at the camera and goes, like, I don't know what more. Like, bro, I don't know what more I gotta do. Speaking of Haley Van Lith, somebody called 911 because shoddy fire was not burning on the dance floor or the basketball court, as 911 also happens to be her stat line from the game. So Justin, with stars like Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese going at it like this, are we witnessing the true rise of women's hoops?
I would say so. I mean, you got to think they're both going to go to the WNBA next year, and I think it's going to bring a spotlight to that sport. Being able to watch kind of that duo it's almost a little reminiscent of like Larry Bird and Magic Johnson.
It really is. That's exactly the vibe I got.
Like they have this rivalry in college, just like Larry Bird and Magic Johnson did with Indiana State and Michigan State. And it just kind of feels like that rivalry is going to carry over into the WNBA and help it. I mean, because you got to think the NBA was not doing well before those two came into the league. Not to say that the WNBA is doing awful right now, but can you imagine the headlines that the WNBA is going to be able to make with those two coming into the league? It's going to be fun to watch.
It is indeed. It's gonna be fun for sure. Like you said, I think the WNBA has it's growing in popularity a little bit because of stars like Sabrina Ionescu and Brianna Stewart and people like that. But I definitely think the rivalries like this are what we need. Like it's really gonna make the sport more exciting. You get the passionate battles between the two. I loved last year Angel Reese, doing the ring and the "you can't see me" at Caitlin Clark, and then this year, Caitlin Clark celebrating and getting the better of them, and the Iowa fans waving bye to Angel Reese as she fouled out. Like I love it. I love the competitive atmosphere there. Um, I saw somebody tweeted that the only player that could stop Caitlin Clark is Draymond Green. Could Caitlin Clark actually play in the NBA?
No. Let's be honest. I mean, she's 6 foot. Can she shoot? Absolutely. Does she have skill? Absolutely. But it's a different game. It's so much more vertical than what she plays. I don't even think she'd be able to get a shot off. If you want me to be completely honest, unless she's pulling up from.
I was gonna say she would get a shot off, but it's because they'd get her the ball at the volleyball line, and she'd pull up before anybody got there.
Yeah.
No, I agree with you. Like, obviously, this was a fun topic, and I think Caitlin Clark is amazing. I genuinely think that, and I'll get to this a little bit later in hot takes, but I genuinely think, well, you know what? I'll just save it for later. But point being, Caitlin Clark's great, but like you said, the NBA is a completely different game. I just don't think she would. Not like it's not that she's not talented or skilled enough. It's that her skills are different than what succeeds at the NBA level, because the NBA is more physical and size matters a lot more.
Faster and a lot more vertical.
Yeah.
There's no 7'4" Wembanyama or 7 foot Rudy Gobert or 6'10" Kevin Durant that's going to be guarded like
exactly. Like it's just purely like a biological difference.
She's going up against a 5'8" women's point guard. It's just different.
Yeah, and Haley Van Lith is good too. Like Haley Van Lith had a bad game. Don't get me wrong, but like offensively and defensively, she had a bad game. But like she's good. Like I've been seeing her for a while. So, I want to get on to another topic because I know we both have some stuff to contribute to this. But so Angel Reese got a lot of hate last year for the way she celebrated LSU's win, and now she's getting hate for the way they lost this year and the way she carries herself. So first and foremost, I want you to be able to give your side of this take, because I think that there is a key distinction to make here. Because I do think it's ridiculous that she's getting it hate, but it's not. I don't think that the hate directed at like her. You give your side first, and I'll explain in a minute.
Yeah, give me 1 second. I was trying to pull up the thought that I had because I sent it to you over text.
Yeah, you're good.
So my thing with it all was that, I love her passion, and I love passion in sports because it's what makes sports amazing. It's what drives us to want to watch these things. Seeing LeBron drive down the lane and flex on, after he just threw down a tomahawk dunk, or, watching these celebrations in the NFL after a touchdown, or seeing someone pimp a swamp donkey in the MLB and then, bat flip. Like it's what drives us to watch sports.
Seeing somebody what?
Pimp a swamp donkey.
See, that's the problem, is that's what I thought you said. Do I have to censor that too?
Would you rather me say mash a piss missile?
No.
Fair enough. There you go. So, I have no issue with her being passionate about the way that she's playing. No issue with that. The issue that I do have with it all is the fact that when she wins, and when she won last year, it was this, big bad, I want to be all tough, I look what I just did. I'm celebrating all over you. I just won the natty. You can't see me. Point to my ring finger. And then this year, when she loses, she's at the podium crying. And, I have no problem with showing emotion after a loss, but she wasn't crying because she lost. she was crying because of some of the hate that she was receiving. And while some of it was a bit much, a lot of it was directed towards, you can't act all tough when you win and then act like this when you lose. If you want to be passionate, you just kind of have to own that. Like Michael Jordan, he would trash talk. Larry Bird, he would trash talk all the time. They would trash talk all the time. And people loved it. And Kobe Bryant did it all the time. That mentality, and people loved it. But the thing is, they wouldn't shy away from it. When they would get hate, they wouldn't crumble. They wouldn't go to the podium in tears saying, "Hey, this is too much." Like, they would just embrace the hate. Like, it's a part of being a professional. And I know she's not a professional, but she will be. She probably is getting paid from NIL.
Probably.
So,
yeah.
So while she's not technically a WNBA, but she still should carry herself in that way. And it just like, you can't. I don't know. You have to be passionate the whole way through, and if you're not, that's where you're gonna get a lot of the hate.
For sure.
So I kind of just don't feel bad. Like, is some of the hate, like calling her a thug and all of that stuff, is that too far? Absolutely, yes. Like, there's no need for that. You shouldn't be calling anybody that. But it's it's just kind of like, if you can't take the heat, stay out of the kitchen kind of deal.
Yeah, I'm with you. Yeah, where I would agree with you is, like you said, the sore loser stuff versus being a sore winner. Like, that I completely agree. And you should be able to get called out for acting like that and just be like, no, you're right. Like, I was a jerk last year when we won, so I got to be able to take it when we lose. Like, that I completely stand with. What I want to push back on, and where I think is ridiculous, is, like you said, the people calling her a thug, calling out her reactions and emotion as like, oh, this is, she's just a thug on the court. And yet this is the same thing that men do, and we love it. I mean, we constantly call men celebrating and getting mad and frustrated. It's passion and love of the game. There's a clip of Peyton Manning cussing out his center on the sideline. And people,
Saturday.
Yeah, and people are all like, oh, like, he's just passionate. That's how he is. But when Angel Reese is over here, yeah, and stuff when they're losing or getting mad, whatever, she gets a foul or something like that, they talk about she's a thug and it's bad for the game. And then there's a little bit of the race element, too, because people loved it when Caitlin Clark would celebrate and do stuff like that, but then they hated it when Angel Reese did it. Now, look, I agree with you. Like you said, are there times an athlete should carry themselves differently in moments? Sure, absolutely. But the discrimination we see between, these two wonderful competitors and then, like, the women versus the men in general is ridiculous. And I felt like we needed to still call that out. Like, Angel Reese is a phenomenal athlete who had a rough game and she fouled out. But she's an athlete, and she deserves all of the same rights as other white athletes and other male athletes. The problem I have with people saying is that she needs to be classy. Like, that's the thing. Like, they're saying she's thuggish, she's not classy, stuff like that. But they never said that about Brady when he was spiking tablets to the ground. Like I said, they just said that he was passionate. So I just wanted to call that out because, I definitely feel like it's an important conversation to have. And, like I said, I agree with you that she did come off as a bit of a sore loser after the game, but overall, I think some of the hate, like we said, was definitely not justified. So,
for sure.
Any final thoughts on that game?
I'm good.
Cool. All right. Well, that being said, the men's Final Four is set. We've got Purdue versus NC State. And then we've got UConn's basketball practice versus Alabama. If that doesn't tell you guys how I'm picking that game. So, do you want to trade these off? Like, you can do one, I'll do the next.
I was just gonna take this whole section.
Go for it.
You got most of the you got all of the breaking news.
Yeah, and the the Iowa LSU. So yeah, this is your section, my friend. You go for it, and I'll answer any questions you have.
All right. So we're just going to kind of go into each team, kind of analyzing their run, some key players, and just some stats they've had throughout the tournament. So we'll start off with NC State. They become the 7th 11 seed to make the Final Four, joining the 1986 LSU Tigers, the 2006 George Mason Patriots, the
Who?
2011 VCU Rams, the 2018 Loyola Chicago Ramblers,
Yes,
and the
sir.
2021 UCLA Bruins, all of which got knocked out in the Final Four. The thing that's most impressive about this run is they had to win 5 games in 5 days just to make the tournament. One of those in the semifinals against Virginia, they needed a missed free throw and a miracle 3 just to send it to overtime. And so, like, if Virginia makes that free throw, they go up by 4 with like 3 seconds left. Game over.
Game over.
And then they all, like, even though he missed it, they still had to hit a just bananas falling away bank shot 3 just to send it to overtime, where they obviously ended up winning. Their coach was also on the hot seat going into the ACC tournament because they ended their season on a 2-7 skid, and they have now won 9 games in a row to get to the Final Four. Also, just a fun little fact. If you bet $100 on NC State to beat Louisville in the first round of the ACC tournament and then rolled over your winnings every game over their 9-game win streak, started out with $100, you would have $556,000. Crazy. So the question I have for you is this the most unlikely and improbable Final Four runs ever?
Yeah, absolutely. Um, I just cannot think of another team that had to do what they've had to do to get to where they're at. I mean, they lost 14 games in the regular season. Like, it's a miracle they even made the tournament, like you said. So to do that and then to be here in the Final Four now, I think that's just a testament to their program and their heart, because truly, like, they've had to play some great teams. Like, I mean, Duke this year was a good team. You know what I mean? Like,
They had to beat them twice. They
they had
had
to
to
beat them
beat North
twice. They
Carolina.
had to beat North Carolina. Like, that's the thing. Like, they have had just an incredible run to get here. You know, the game that they played in the Elite Eight against Duke, speaking of, was kind of funny because both Duke and NC State, everybody on that team thought that they were Steph Curry, and I couldn't figure out why, because at one point Duke was 1 of 12 from 3, and NC State was 2 of 13. And then I watched freaking Kyle Filipowski come down on one end and brick another 3, and then I watched somebody on NC State come down and brick another 3, and I'm just like, what are you doing? And then NC State kind of finally figured it out. Hey, let's feed Burns. You know, the 6'9", 275-pound guy we have. Let's feed him, because they weren't stopping him. Kyle Filipowski was in foul trouble and fouled out with like 10 minutes to go because he was guarding him. Like, NC State did that, and they finally pulled off the win. I'm really excited for their matchup against Purdue. Because I just genuinely think that Zach Edey versus Burns is going to be crazy.
It's going to be cinema.
You know, I think, unfortunately, I think NC State is probably going to follow the trend of the other 11 seeds. Just because Zach Edey's, what, 7'4", 7'3"?
Yeah, 7'4".
7'4". And, like, Zach Edey's play in this tournament has felt a little Jokic-esque, where you could play phenomenal defense for 23.9 seconds, and he's just going to hook shot and make it. And that's what Purdue did to Tennessee. So, yeah, I think NC State is having, like you said, one of the most unlikely and improbable Final Four runs ever. But unfortunately, I tend to think this might be where it ends. So,
well, let's get into their opponent, Purdue. They went 29-4 in the regular season and 17-3 in Big Ten conference play. Zach Edey joins only David Robinson with 4 consecutive 20-point, 10-rebound games to start a tournament, which he had 19-10 at halftime against Tennessee. He ended the game with what was like 40-16.
It was 40. It was 40, 16, and 7 or something like that.
Yeah. He also drew 16 fouls against Tennessee defenders. They have an average margin of victory in the tournament of 21.25 points and have outscored their opponents in the second half by 13.5. So they are clearly a second half dominant team. They shot 3 of 15 from deep against Tennessee, which is something that they will not be able to do again if they want to move to the championship game. In a press conference, Zach Edey said that he feels like the Boilermakers are underdogs. Do you agree with Zach Edey's sentiments calling the Boilermakers underdogs? Because they've been doubted, because they haven't had postseason success up until obviously this year. They've constantly been a 1 and 2 seed and gotten knocked out. Do you agree with him? Are they underdogs? Should they be doubted?
All right, who gave George Kittle the mic again? What are you talking about? Underdog. Dog, y'all are like the second best team in the tournament. Like, that's how I felt about freaking... that's how I felt about the 49ers when George Kittle's over here. We've been doubted. Like, we've been underdogs all season. Dog, you have been favored in all 20 of your games.
You were favored against the bye week.
Yeah, like, underdog, no. Not at all. I don't think they're underdogs. I don't agree with his statements in the slightest. I also think he is correct that they have been doubted, because why wouldn't we doubt them? They have flamed out in every, like, they flamed out early, like, every time they've been in the tournament the last, like, 5 years. So I think it's kind of like what people said about, like, Lamar until this year, and honestly, even still kind of after this year. Or it's what people have said about other people, where it's like, oh, they're great in the regular season, or like James Harden, like, oh, he's great in the regular season, but in the postseason, they're not as good. And Purdue, unfortunately, has kind of felt in that stereotype lately. So I don't think we're wrong to doubt them, but I do think that they are incredibly wrong to call themselves underdogs. They were clearly, like, they've clearly been the better team in every matchup they've had, even against Tennessee. Like, Tennessee, I thought could beat them, but also Tennessee was Dalton Connector bust. Let's be real. So, yeah, underdog is egregious.
All right, well, let's get into the other matchup. We'll start off with the number 1 overall seed, the UConn Huskies. They have an average margin of victory in the tournament this year of 27.7 points per game. This includes beating Stetson by 39, Northwestern by 17, San Diego State, a rematch of last year's national championship, by 30, and then previously in the Elite Eight, they beat Illinois 25-0. They beat them by 25. I apologize. They did
Could
go
you
on a
imagine
30...
a team putting up 0 points?
They did go on a 30-0 run. It was tied at 23, and then going into the second half, they were up 28-23, and then started the second half on a 25-0 run.
Did you see where it was like 50 minutes of real life time went by between Illinois scoring points?
Right.
I mean, granted, that's including halftime, but still, that's ridiculous.
Yeah. They have outscored their opponents in the second half by an average of 10, though it could probably be more considering they have to take their foot off the gas towards the end because they're up by so much. As the great Vince Lombardi once said, if you're early, you're on time. If you're on time, you're late. And if you're late, don't bother showing up. Kind of feels like the same rules apply to UConn when you're playing them. If you're up 6 to 10 points, you're on time. You're doing good. If you're up by 2 or you're tied or you're down a point or 2, you're late. And if you're down by 6 or more, you're screwed. It's just plain and simple. So, is this the most dominant run to the Final Four that we've ever seen? Like, they are winning games by almost 30 points.
You know, I don't. Is it the most dominant run to the Final Four we've ever seen? I don't know that it's necessarily the most dominant. Like the scores and average win margins are impressive for sure, but I'm sure like what was it? Kareem won like 3 national titles in a row, something like that, and then like, I mean, you had like the 2012 Kentucky team where Anthony Davis blocked everybody on planet Earth like 8 times. Like I'm sure there are probably like better teams that have had success, but I will say this is definitely just, I mean, if there's ever been a year where a team has just spanked everybody to get there and like made it look easy, this is one of those. UConn, I think, just plays so hard, like on offense and on defense, and they play such good team basketball. Like UConn has, I feel like, honestly, every time UConn has been good, they've never really had like one guy that was truly like amazing outside of what was it, Kemba Walker.
Yeah, they had Shabazz Napier that one year too.
Yeah, but like here lately, I mean, within the last like 6 years or so, anytime UConn's been like really good, it just feels like they've had like 5 like B plus A minus guys, but they're killing these teams that have 1 A+ guy and then 3 C level guys. Like so. Is it the most dominant? It's probably the most dominant that I've seen just from a pure like margin of victory. But I don't know that I would necessarily call them the best Final Four team in the last, however many years. So,
Gotcha. And do you think this team is better than last year's championship team?
I do. Just because I think they had a lot of returning guys as well. If I'm not mistaken, I don't think they really had too many guys leave for the draft. So
They had 3.
they had 3 like returners.
3 of their starters. No, 3 starters went to the NBA last year.
So I mean, you got to think they're still bringing back some guys on the team, and they're bringing in other good guys as well. So I mean, they've got some guys with championship pedigree as well. And this team just feels more complete than last year's team. Like last year's team, I felt like was almost a surprise that they were there.
I mean, they were a 4 seed, so yeah.
Yeah. Whereas this year, it's like they're unquestioned the best team in the league. So, definitely this team's better than last year's team.
Yeah, and then one more question. If Dan Hurley wins his second championship in 2 years, should we be talking about him kind of with like the greats of college basketball coaches, like up there with like a Coach Cal, Coach K, you know?
Well, okay, is this pre 2016 Coach Cal or like current Coach Cal? Because current Coach Cal I wouldn't put in the top 10.
Like Bill Self from Kansas or Roy Williams from UNC. Yeah. Should we be talking about him or Jim Boeheim? Should we be talking about Dan Hurley kind of in the same breath as those guys if he goes back to back?
Absolutely, I think so. If he goes back to back, I think he has established himself as a powerhouse of college basketball. I don't remember exactly what the stats are on repeat champions, but I know if nothing else, it doesn't happen very often.
The last time we had it was the 2006, 2007 Florida, so it's been almost 20 years.
So, I mean, the fact that you do something that hadn't been done in 2 decades put you up at the top with some of the good names, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, I definitely think it becomes one of those moments where you got to start looking at him up there with those big names. I mean, how many coaches can say they've won 1 national title, let alone back-to-back?
Yeah. All right, and moving on to our Final Four team, the Alabama Crimson Tide. They have averaged 90.7 points per game, which is the best in Division I. They are also top 25 in three-point percentage, and they have 8 different players who have made at least 23s this season and 4 that have made at least 40. This team simply lives and dies by the 3. However, they do own the 102nd ranked defense. Mark Sears is clearly their guy. He is averaging 21.4 and 4.1 assists per game. With Aaron Estrada and a stretch five and Grant Nelson also being lethal from deep. Simply put, this team is scary. They can shoot the ball out of the net. I don't think that's a saying, but I'm gonna make it one.
I think shoot the air out of the ball is the one you were looking for.
Nope, they can shoot the ball out of the net.
Shoot the ball out of the net. I like it. I like it. Standing on business. I like it.
What does this Bama team have to do to win this game against UConn? Because I mean, let's be honest, they're an 11 and a half point underdog. What do they have to do? What are some keys to success for Bama to win this game? Or do they have any?
Does Jesus Christ have any eligibility? Look, Alabama's a great team. And I think that they have definitely they've definitely overachieved this year as far as what was expected of them. But I texted you whenever Alabama and Clemson were giving us that great game that these two teams were just playing to see who gets to go get killed by UConn. Look, I just think UConn matches up too well defensively with them. And UConn's offense is good enough that, I mean, if you're the 102nd ranked defense, I'm not saying it can't happen, because obviously it's a one and done scenario. If this were a 7-game series, I could easily see Alabama getting swept or gentlemen swept, but obviously it's college basketball, so anything can happen. I mean, UConn could just show up and all 5 of their guys could have a bad day at the same time. It's basketball, but Alabama is going to need to have one of their games where they are, shooting the lights out, shooting the ball out of the net, as you say. And they're going to have to step up on defense. I mean, they're going to have to play their hearts out for 40 minutes because they're not going to win this game unless they can keep UConn close, and the only way you're going to do that is if you're getting second chance opportunities and slowing them down, because otherwise it's been a good run.
It's curtains.
Roll Tide, right on back to Bama. So, any final thoughts on our Final Four?
No, should be a good one. We got the Final Four coming up on Saturday with the championship on Monday, and it'll be fun to recap that.
For sure it will. Can I just say what a fun season and fun March Madness this has been.
Yeah, it's been a good one.
It has. It's been a good one. Even the Elite 8 matches, Clemson, Alabama, nobody would have picked that matchup. I mean, I sure didn't. No. And so for me, it's just seeing teams that probably had no business making it as far as they did, make it as far as they did, and then have just amazing performances. Who would have ever said that Duke would lose to NC State in the tournament? It's been a fun year, so I can't wait to see how it ends, like you said. On to our concluding segment, we have, of course, everyone's favorite that isn't named Taverner's Tears. We have hot takes. So I'll give us a start here. I think I've had this one before, but I'm gonna double down on it. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander will be the 2024 Kia NBA MVP. He's leading OKC. They are either currently the number 1 seed or are right in line with it, within a half a game. And he's the best player on that team.
They are currently the number 1.
That's what I knew they were close to.
As we are recording this, they're currently playing, but as we are recording this, they are the 1 seed.
Yeah. So, I just feel when you look at his importance to that team, I think he should be MVP.
You're not going to hear any complaints from me. I just think it's going to be hard for him to beat Jokic.
I get it, but Jokic is the boring, uncool pick. So.
Yeah, I mean, I agree, but I'm not voting, unfortunately. My first hot take is that I believe that Zach Edey will not work in the NBA. Let's be honest. I mean, yes, he is tall, but every time I've watched him over these last couple games, and even in the Big Ten tournament, I really haven't been that impressed. He gets a bunch of foul calls, and to his credit, he does make his free throws. He is a great free throw shooting big, but a lot of those calls you're not going to get in the NBA. He's also going up against guys that are 6'9", 6'10". What is he going to do when he has to go up against 7-foot Rudy Gobert or 6'10" but can jump out of the roof Anthony Davis, or I don't know, 7'4" Victor Wembanyama, who can match him and is longer and more athletic than he is, can move his feet quicker. I just don't think he has the quickness, because if you watch him running up and down the court, he takes forever. If there is a team, if you want to basically take him out of the game, all you have to do is just run transition, because he's not going to be able to get back in time to play, his style of defense where, he's hoping somebody kind of backs him down or he's going to protect the rim. All you have to do is get down the court faster than he does.
Watching him run on the court. It just
feels like he's going to be a defensive liability.
Watching him run on the court reminds me of like trying to run with like Dwight Powell in 2K. Where your guy just like dusts you to the basket and you're getting a wide open layup because Dwight Powell for some reason was in the opposing locker room on your offensive possession. So, all right, my second hot take is that Caitlin Clark, and not Sabrina Ionescu, is the Steph Curry of women's basketball. Watching her play feels like 2016 unanimous MVP Steph. Just the shots that she was hitting against LSU. And LSU is a good team. I mean, they were the defending national champs for a reason. And they added Haley Van Lith, who was one of the most sought-after transfers in the country. And, I mean, they couldn't do... Like, literally, Angel Reese and Haley Van Lith both had clips of them going, bro, I ain't... Like, that moment of Haley Van Lith doing that in the camera reminded me of Enes Kanter doing as Steph pulled up from half court, and we got the infamous double bang play that you love when I reference. It's just like the stuff she does with the ball is just ridiculous. Like, it doesn't make any sense. The shots that she takes should be bad shots. You know what I mean? Like, those are the things that if you or I tried that in a basketball game, we'd get pulled.
Oh, yeah. She's got the green light as soon as she steps over half court.
Exactly. What do you mean as soon as she steps over half court? She has the green light as soon as she walks onto the court. But yeah, so that's my hot take. I don't know how much of a hot take that is, but that's my hot take.
Fair enough. My second hot take is that if the Lakers and the Warriors match up in the 9-10 play-in tournament spot, it will have more viewers than the NBA Finals. Obviously, I'm taking that as like you take all of the viewers and you average them across the games. That single game will have more viewers than the average NBA Finals matchup will have this year.
I could see that. I mean, we're running low on the number of times we're going to get to see LeBron and Steph play each other in meaningful games. So I could see that for sure. I like it. So yeah. I have one more surprise hot take for you.
Oh boy, here we go.
The San Francisco 49ers will sign wide receiver Tyler Boyd. Think he'd be a good fit.
Apparently,
there.
The talks with him in Pittsburgh fell through.
Yeah, that's what I heard. Which I don't know. That's kind of odd. Pittsburgh is weird. I don't actually know if they're going to be any good or not.
I don't know.
They're one of those teams. They're one of those teams that like. They're one of those teams that I genuinely feel like if I were to like look and they were like, I don't know, like 10-4 at one point, I'd be like, yeah, that makes sense. But also if they were like 4-10 at one point, I'd be like, yeah, that makes sense. Like it's hard to like
anywhere in between.
Yeah, it's just hard to pinpoint exactly what this team is going to be.
Like I think the only way I'd be shocked is if they like ended the season like 14-3 or like 3-14.
They win
anything in between. I'd be like, yeah, that checks out.
They win the AFC North somehow, like
right, or they have the first overall draft pick.
Yeah, exactly. So whatever. The 49ers. I mean, I just think that they're gonna need that like pass catcher to go along with their team. So I feel like they'd be a good landing spot for them. One more weapon.
Yeah, wish nothing but the best for T. Boyd.
For sure. And on that note, I think that's everything. So Any final thoughts on this Final Four and fun episode?
I'm good.
All right. Well, Justin, this was our 30th episode. I was looking
Wow.
earlier, and it's crazy. We've come a long way since episode 1.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been a ride.
Sure has. Well, on that note, thank you guys so much for listening. We appreciate it as always, and make sure that you like and subscribe to the podcast on your favorite podcast app, and also on YouTube and TikTok and Instagram at the Rundown Sports Pod. And until next time, guys, have a nice night, and thank you guys for listening.